everybody. Welcome to the show, season 2. We made it a few episodes out of last season, I guess. But we got some amazing guests today from Manitoba, the land of the giants, you could say. Big walleye, big cats, big everything. Welcome, guys. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having us.
So, you guys have already been slaying monsters this year, from what I've been seeing. And you were talking earlier, the ice conditions doing great, and people should get up there right away and fill some spots for you, eh?
Yeah, no question. The ice, as far as travel conditions on the ice, it's some of the best I've seen in almost 10 years. It's easy to get around. The fishing is also probably starting off to be one of the easiest and best Januaries we've had for catching in the last 5-6 years. Well, maybe 4 or 5 years. But and then obviously, COVID has absolutely devastated us, and now the borders are open. And I'm hoping and praying we got American guests coming, and I'm hoping and praying they keep the borders open. But even local trips or people from across Canada or whatever, as long as you're able to, yeah, we'd like to. It's a great time to come right now. We got open schedules, and that's not something I can always say, that we have guys standing by waiting to go. So,
yeah, Blackwater Cats Outfitters.
Yeah,
amazing group of guys, and the pictures that have been coming out of there this year already on the ice is just insane. You guys are getting masters already. You're on the ice every day, locating, and just the pictures is proof in the pudding what they would say, I guess.
Doesn't do it any justice by any means.
No, for sure. And it's even it's not it's it's kind of funny because Ryan and I and Brad were talking, and it's just because what we've accustomed to and what we've seen over the years, and even what we've been catching now is a lifetime trip for most people, and we're kind of I'll let Ryan take it here. What were you saying earlier? How you don't feel like this has been a win so far, Ryan?
Well, you know what, last year was pretty crazy. There was no pressure, and what I was kind of accustomed to is fishing by myself for 8 hours and catching 5 over 28 for 2 people basically. And then this year, for example, it's pretty good. It's just we're always aiming for our best bite ever, and there's some mental block now that if we have something just shy, or it's the greatest fishing ever to the average person, we're always going, for that one thing. I'll give you an example. So I had 2 groups out the last couple days, and yesterday we got for 4 of them 9 over 25 inches. Okay. Now only 2 of those were over 28. One of them was a 29.5. It felt like a slow day. Now the other group that I had, 2 snow bears, they got 4 over 28, a 29, and then 20 fish each for eaters. And then today, one of those guys got a 31. That was pretty awesome. But it's if we're not catching, big fish out of every 1 out of every 8 holes, it feels kind of slow. And that's really, really stupid to say, but that's just kind of the fish we've accustomed to. And now that we have the electronics, we're on those really hot bites. Just that, just even more often than we were before. So when we're not just absolutely pulling 28 inches and catching 5 of those a day, it just feels slow. But that's
what are you guys running for?
That's a very crazy thing to say.
Sorry, you mentioned electronics. What are you guys running this year?
So well, they each got their own stuff. I'm with Hummingbird, and I've been putting the 360 imaging to the test.
Yeah.
Ryan and Vanessa have been running a Livescope for the last a couple years. Brad got a Livescope too. I will eventually be getting the Mega Live. But yeah, it's just that live and technology, the ability basically to see under the ice at a distance and get a whole picture of what's under there. In years past, you had to hit a spot with 1 rod, with 1 flasher, and fish it for 15 minutes, and hopefully something came in that you would see it. And there could be, and what we're learning now is there could have been 30 fish around you that had no interest in showing itself in the cone, and now we're seeing that. The amount of time, it's not a magic bean, and it's not going to catch the fish for us, but the amount of time it's saving us looking for fish is just absolutely, truly, the only thing in fishing, the term's used all the time, game changer. nothing's a game changer. This electronics is a game changer.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So between Humminbird and Garmin, what do you guys think? Who's got the product? Who has the best right now?
You know what? Well, okay, Ryan will talk to you about the Livescope. When you talk about the live technology, I haven't used the Mega Live yet. Lawrence has their version. I think it would be silly to think that Livescope, that's been around for 6 years or 7 years, hasn't refined their technology to be, the best. At the end of the day, they all do the same job. It's just about clarity and whatever. The 360 imaging stands alone. Like, there's nothing out there that compares to it. It's not a fish finder, or it's not a flasher. You can't catch fish on it, but it might even be a little better at getting an overall view and quickly seeing what fish are around instantly, right? But it's only a fish locator, and then that's it. You're not catching nothing on it, right? So,
Oh yeah.
what Ryan can talk about the Livescope, because he used it. Him and Vanessa used it to win a tournament championship last year. So.
Yeah, no, it's an absolute game changer. Like, it's kind of funny. Like, you start fishing, let's say, like, with the traditional sonars, and obviously when I grew up fishing with just a straight, just a jig, nothing but a jig and a minnow, no electronics whatsoever. And then you use a friend's sonar, and then you go out and buy one, and then you forget it at home one day, and you feel like you're absolutely blind. Well, now I can have 4 of those in my truck. I can care less. I'm blind if I don't have one of these live units.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious how it goes. But like it basically cuts our work. So traditionally, to find fish, we have to go drill a hole, sit there for 20 minutes, hope a fish comes by, and then move on, right? So it would take us like all day to hit up maybe like 10 to 15 spots. Well, I can hit up 30 to 50 spots in one day, maybe even more, like in half a day. In probably 6 hours, I could probably hit up 30 to 40 spots. So that's just, the odds are in your favor to find more fish that way, right?
For sure.
When I take a break from my guests, it's been really cold, so I set them up in the tents and get them catching, and then I go look for new pods. And with the imaging, I'm finding like it's taken me 2-3 minutes a spot. Like, rip a hole, drop it down there, and I mean I can go fish 7 or 8 spots in an hour, and that might take me half a day before, right? So, and I'm not even dropping a lure. I'm not fishing anything. I'm just looking. I'm just scouting.
Yeah, it's saving you a lot of time on the ice, especially.
Yeah.
How are you liking yours, Todd?
I love it. Yeah, I mean, I've tried it in almost every scenario. I think I finally have it dialed in. But yeah, I would agree with the guys. It saves a lot of time in trying to narrow down those areas. And I think especially with, this weekend we targeted bull trout. It actually helps fine tune your presentation so that you know that you're using the right tackle to really focus on them. I think that was the biggest advantage this weekend for us.
And that's a lot deeper water. Like,
Yeah,
when you're on big windy targeting walleye, it's a lot shallower than that 80 to 100 feet.
a lot shallower. Yeah, but I mean, even in the clarity or surface clutter might not be as good on the 10 to 15 feet we fish sometimes, but I still find that it's pretty darn accurate, man. You can dial in some pretty good stuff with it. So
Nice. What so right now you've been saying January is just crazy. The bite's hot, and some years March is good, some years January, and this year January is just going crazy.
Yeah, January is good. I wouldn't say it's going crazy, because Ryan mentioned like 2018 was, it's almost like you got to take 2018 off the books though, because it's just one of these exceptional years that we caught more and bigger fish than any of the other 10 years combined. Like, it was just ridiculous. But I mean, the fishing's been really good. We might have had Januaries where we've been catching more big fish this early, Ryan. I don't know, but it's been pretty good. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it's, the next week will be a good tell. I mean, we do have slow Januaries, and I would say typically like Januaries going back further back, let's say like 3-4 years ago, are better than the last couple, but there's been, I'm just trying to think here, like, you know, let's just say, what was our last full year guy in 2020? There was a stretch, there was a 2-week stretch in January where it wasn't totally lights out, and there was a couple days where we grinded for a couple fish, and it was like the lake was absolutely dead.
Yeah.
And that's what I always tell people. And I mean, we've had marches. We call it March, you know, it's supposed to be lit up, and we call it March Sadness because it feels like there's been so much pressure over that lake that every single walleye, you know, with over 20 miles gets picked off, right? So,
Yeah.
like I said, at the end of the day, it's a total flip of the coin. I really believe that there's monstrous schools. Like, think of it as a school that spans 2 miles. We'll just move in at any given time from that huge, vast lake going north. And maybe next week a big pod will move out. Maybe one will move in. And it's just, you know, whatever they give us. And one thing to say, too, I'll add on to that. There's no trending. So, like, in 2017, we had a very, like, one of our tougher years. We had to go out in 22 feet of water. There was no fish in the normal spots whatsoever. And we were looking like, man, like, this lake might be tailing out here. Like, this might be it. Like, if we get any worse than this the next year, it's going to start getting ugly, right? We were grinding up one big fish a day. It was tough. And then 2018 hit, and we're like, oh, it might be over. And that was our best year ever. And you couldn't go anywhere on that south basin without catching a 30-inch walleye. Like, it was incredible, and numbers of them. So, like I said, this lake is monstrous, and there's different schools that come out every year, and every year is different. So,
Yeah.
What kind of different structures do you guys like to fish?
Well, we really like to fish. There's this really, really good sand mud flat that starts at Chalet Beach and goes across 16 miles to Balsam Bay and about 2 miles out from the south basin. It's that, you know, joking with that. I mean, the whole lake is just a shallow bowl mud flat. Like, there is some structure in there. There are creek edges and some hard structure and rock piles. Those fish don't relate to structure at all.
Yeah.
Like, it's not. Like, that lake is just a giant sad mud, you know, basin, and the walleyes are doing one thing. They're just looking for bait and looking for food.
Yeah, from what I've seen, as soon as the bait clouds move through, the walleye were coming through with them, and you're just marking big walleye, and you're just going to where they're at and getting in front of their face pretty much when the bait clouds rolled in.
For sure. Like, I remember, like, you know, a decade ago, that lake was so daunting and intimidating. Like, I understand why guys come up, they try to do it on their own. They're like, where do you start, right?
Yeah.
And they usually start looking for groups of anglers, but you tend to find that anglers don't necessarily mean fish. It just means that they're anglers, right? But like, I remember going 5 miles out to the mouth from Warner Road. That was like, wow, you went that far? Wow, you went out to no man's land? And, like, that's like a starting point now. That's like the grocery store. That's like, it's nothing, right? It's like that lake has went from getting so big, well, for us anyways, to so small now. It's like it's still huge, but it's just like there isn't me and Ryan, I don't think there's, or even Brad, I don't think there's a spot in our GPS that doesn't have a, you know, there isn't a spot in that lake that doesn't have a GPS coordinate within, you know, 500 yards of it.
Yeah.
So
It's a lot of water to cover too. So a lot of time I'm sure you guys have put into that.
yeah.
What kind of lure do you like to start off with to locate when you're fishing?
Ryan, you take that one.
You know what? We've been running spoons pretty heavy the last, you know, 4 or 5 years. I've always been, when I started fishing the lake, I'd use a smaller spoon, like, let's just say, you know, like 1.5 inches, 2 inches.
Yeah.
But I guess, I don't know what year it was, but we started running those 3-inch, like, Donovan runs the Pelican spoons, the 3.5 inch spoons.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of go with those, and a lot of guys love their crankbaits. I'm personally not a crankbait guy, just because there's usually a window. I'll admit that crankbaits will catch more fish than spoons, but that's maybe honestly like a week or two per year. I really believe, and I always tell guys, if they're biting spoons just as good as they're biting crankbaits, you're better off using a spoon because you're going to lose less fish. And the reason is you get that crankbait, right? And you have, seen it 100 times, and every time a guy has a real giant on with a crankbait, I kind of cringe. And guys hate when I say this because guys swear by their crankbaits, but it's the truth. You got that second hook usually dangling out there, and when it's flopping on the ice, that second hook just grabbing right on that thing. And one hook gets on, and that fish rips its mouth away from it, and it gets away. Versus just a single spoon with a big hook on there. I just personally am way more confident landing those fish and getting those fish topside. But yeah, like I said, we use all sorts of spoons. I don't really worry about color. Gold was really good for me in 2018, and I keep going back to the same gold color, this Tigger Spoon color, and it just keeps failing me. But that year I was out fishing everything 4-1, and it's amazing these fish. Like, there will be the pattern. It might be a month, it might be all season long, and then next year these fish just turn away from it. It is the weirdest thing ever, just to see how these fish behavior changes.
Yeah.
When you guys get your spoons, do you upsize your trebles?
Well, you know what, Ryan, very much a firm believer in going with bigger hooks, and I am too. Like, the Pelican spoons we use are pretty big already. Like, they have pretty good size, and Ryan uses some RJs as well, and they have pretty good hooks on them as it is. If I downsize to a small spoon, like on Finicky Bite,
Yeah.
I like to increase the hook size a little bit. But I find if you go too big, it takes away from the idea of downsizing. You know what I mean? It's just, and I've seen it with a buckshot. Like, I've actually seen it where this girl was out with her boyfriend there, and then she was out fishing them, and she was catching master after master, and she had this little buckshot spoon on with this little tiny hook. But then the hook's getting beaten up and bent open, and then it broke off the trip. So I upgraded this because she lost a couple fish too, and I upgraded the hook size, and then she stopped getting bites.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then so I'm like, well, what the heck? So I put the smaller hook back on, even though it was missing because I didn't have another replacement, and I could have taken off on a spoon, I guess. But she started catching fish again right away. So I don't know, and that might have just been one situation. But typically, like Ryan always says too, he likes bigger spoons, and there's no question, or bigger hooks on spoons, and they definitely hold the fish better. There's no doubt.
Yeah, though, last time I was out there, I swear by the last 2 times, I swear by this.
Okay.
It's a clam with the silver, with the purple, with the rattle on the back. And it was like, when they moved in, they bid it. We were even 2 years in a row when we were filming with Dime Store, it was always good. Like, I left one with Carlo, because we were fishing with Carlo, Lee Nolan, some of those guys. And he just couldn't believe how well that little stupid thing did.
Yeah.
But,
for sure. I think that's classic. Like the fish on, like, let's face it, those fish for the most part, if you get those greenbacks in even a neutral to slightly positive mood, you're gonna catch them on any good lure. A buckshot, the rattle trap, Fire Tiger number 5 rattling wrap. If you want to talk rattle baits, is one of the most consistent rattle baits you can use for almost anything. Like, it catches fish all the time, right? So I mean, when those fish are aggressive or positive, anything works. When we talk about patterns, like Ryan mentioned, when you like, and it's not all the time. A lot of the times we're bouncing back and forth and trying this, and then you catch a couple fish and you think you're onto something, and then they shy away from it, and you go to something else and you can't quite figure out. But then what happens is all of a sudden you put on something and it's like lightning. It's just like, oh man, like the fish's attitude to it completely changed. Neutral fish, negative fish, they just hit it like without hesitation, and you're like, okay, this is different. And then you try something else with that same color pattern or profile or whatever else, and it's like, okay, they're on. And like last year it happened with the Wonder Bread, that Wonder Bread white spotted pattern, right? Well, it's always been a half decent lure. I've never been too hot and heavy about it on Lake Winnipeg, but last year I put it on, and all of a sudden, like, these fish went from neutral and negative to just smashing it, right? And I started promoting a lot of people follow me, so I start making some posts about it, and everybody's buying it. And there's no question, like, it was hot last year, and it's hot again this year. But that white Wonder Bread with like a silver back, it's just dynamite. And it's never been that hard. And but the thing is, that'll change. It'll change later this year or next year or whatever. I've had so many last lures I've ever needed on Lake Winnipeg. I can't even remember them all. And Ryan, like he was just mentioning about that Tigger Spoon, like he could go do no wrong for 2 years, right? Yeah. And then last year he kept on going back to the well and just beating a dead horse, and it just wasn't working, right? And we even fall into that trap once in a while. But when you find something that it's like it's just better than everything else this year, right?
Yeah,
so.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was saying that so just to give you an idea of how pronounced it can be. So that Tigger Spoon there, like I said, it's still a confidence lure to me, but it just hasn't shined the way it has. But back in 2018 there, when I wasn't really using it that much. The year before, a guy gave it to me, and he's like, "This is my favorite Lake Winnipeg lure. I always use it," and I kind of put it away. Clients always give us their favorite lure. They want us to use it. I kind of put it away. And there was one day where the fish went really negative. We were on a big fish bite. We were shallow on the shoreline by Prudence Creek there. And fish were coming up. Big marks were coming up and then going down. And going up, coming up, and going down. And they were clearly big fish, and we could not get one to bite. So we were just trying different stuff as you do when that happens. And I give one of my guys this Tigger Spoon, and like seriously on the drop, a big fish comes by, gets like a 27. We're like, holy crap. And then he drops back down again and he gets a 29. And then he's like, one of his buddy comes over and says, give me that. This all happened in about 5 minutes. He's like, give me that lure. And he passes it off to I had about 5 guys with me. He passes it off to his buddy, and his buddy drops down and literally within a minute catches a 29.5, right? And then what happened for the rest of the day is they're passing this lure around, and every time it got passed within 10 minutes, one guy would get a big fish. And I think we got like 12 over 27 that afternoon on that one lure, and not one other lure caught a big fish that day. And we actually ended up losing it at the end of the day. And then I got a hold of the guy who makes them, and he sent me 100, and I still have stockpiles of them. I dropped like $600 on these lures, and I still have some of them to this day, but.
And now they're not hot anymore.
Yeah, one day I'll be ready. That's
a couple of years. Couple of years, they're good again.
It'll come back eventually, like every other fad. Don't worry, you hold on to those.
Yeah. Well, I got a funny story about that too. Like, I'm more of a rattle bait guy. Like me and Brad did a lot more of the rattle bait stuff back in the day with like getting tutelage on the Roger Stearns and the live targets. In fact, Brad, my other guy there, he's the first guy to catch a master angler walleye in the world on that live. Well, in the world on Lake Winnipeg, but he's the first guy to catch a master angler walleye on a live target. When Roger was sponsored by them, he's the guy who brought him out to Lake Winnipeg. He got his first supply as a pro staff. He handed him out that day, and within an hour of handing him out, Brad had a 28 or a 29 on the ice. So he holds credit for that. But it's funny with rattle baits, like that live target was hot for a lot of years. And then one of my guests comes up, right? And I always tell my guests, you know what? Try what you got first, and then I'll hand stuff out, right? Because you never know. Every year some guest comes up, like Ryan just told you, with some kind of a lure that turns out to be hot. So this one guy, Lance, there, he's actually in the hospital right now. We're not in the hospital, but he had a stroke, and we're all kind of rooting for him to get back on his feet there. But he starts slamming these 26s. We called him Mr. 26 this trip, just one after another. Nobody else is getting bites. No one's catching big fish, and he's hammering them. And I go over there, and he's got this purple and pink and yellow Uncle Rico clacking wrap on. He calls it the Uncle Rico clacking wrap. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. He's just lucky. So we move spots. He's doing it again. Move spots. He's doing it again. Yeah. By the end of the 2 days, I'm like, I'm just cursing. He's like, what's wrong? I'm like, now there's one more damn thing I got to go buy. So I go buy like 6 or 7 of these Uncle Rico clacking wraps. And I'm telling you, that was the hottest lure on Lake Winnipeg for a year and a half. It outfished the targets, anybody. Roger Stearns came up to me one day. He was fishing with a live target. I'm out fishing him. Like, it was just, and I actually, the funny thing is that lure I have in my garage right now, it looks like it's been dragged over a gravel road I'm sentimental with stuff like that. When it gets to a point where a lure becomes like legendary, I put it away because I don't want to lose it, right? So.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I was using the golden chads this year and the silver on one of our good walleye lakes on Newell and for walleye wars. And as soon as I got into that one area, every time I went over this one drop, you just ripping it, it's smashed every time. But everything has their moment, but every year it seems like something changes a little. I don't know if it's just due to water clarity, maybe their bait source changes a bit, but something has to change for them to target that other bait every year.
Well, hey, this is funny. You guys are from Alberta, right? So you're going to know this. Give me a second. Talk to Ryan for a second. I got to grab a lure to show you because you guys are going to know what this is. And we've stolen and adapted for walleye. And it's the hot lure this year, guaranteed already.
Yeah, to pick up, if you can find that pattern, and I believe at any given time there's some lure out there. It could be a bottle cap, but you could find something in your middle console of your truck, put a hook on it, and that could be the lure of the year. Like I used to do a lot of experimenting with it and just take random lures and just combine them and just make clunky looking things and usually it wouldn't work, but if you put enough things down there, you will see somebody shoot in and hammer it, and hopefully that keeps on happening.
Yep, I agree with you.
Okay, so see where the camera is. Can you guys get a good look at this? You see what that is?
Oh,
It's
so it's Tascoin.
I know exactly what that is, right? So
Yeah.
Pelican Lures Nolan, one of his, I guess, the guys in Alberta showed him this, and this is a downsized tiny version of this is what you guys use for catching what, tulipy or cisco, right? Or whitefish? Whitefish, right? So he looked at this thing and said, this might be good if we upside it for Lake Winnipeg walleye. So he, number 5 Colorado blade with those hooks, upsize it. He started testing this last year and he wasn't even telling me about it. And he was slamming fish on it. Yeah. So I tested it at the end of last year and it worked really well. This year so far, the fish have been good, but kind of finicky, the bigger ones. Everyone I've been handing this out to has been slamming big fish with it. I don't know if it's just because it's lighter or whatever it is, but the fish are just destroying it. Buddies of mine who went to the store and bought them are catching on them. I just had a 6-year-old, a 9-year-old, and 11-year-old, and they all caught masters on these lures up here already.
Wow.
It must just be how they're fluttering down. Are they getting them on the drop or?
Yeah, like on the pop. Well, actually today it was a lot of pops and flutters, like the lift and the drop. But you can also you can rig that salted minnow sideways and have it pinned up against the bait, right? So it kind of gives you it kind of presents it in a way that we've never had before.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've been working really, really, really well actually. And this is it's already catching steam right now. All the stores are ordering it. Everybody's trying to snap them up because they're really working. So you got a exclusive here on your podcast.
Hey man, I've never used one.
Yeah.
I've never used one either, but I'm sure they'll all be sold out tomorrow at the fishing hole.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So catfish, I love catfish, hands down, man. I've caught some bullheads, but anything bigger than a bullhead when we used to fish Minnesota a lot. And you guys have amazing trips for big cats. The pictures, man, I'm just peanut butter jelly all the time. It's I got to make it out one of these years, but it's just crazy.
Yeah, we're pretty blessed. It really is Doug Stange, who's a friend, and I've got the pleasure to guide him several times and fish with him. And he says it best. It's imagine a place where you can go and catch 10-pound largemouth, 10-pound walleye, and 5-pound smallmouth bass all day long. And that's the equivalent of our channel catfish fishery on the Red River. It's just in the U.S. on channel cat waters, they fish. You catch a 20-pound cat that's making the local paper. Right, and that's just if it's not 20 pounds here, we want to shake it off the hook.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
yeah. I'm gonna try to make it out this year for sure. I'm trying to convince the wife. It's either gonna be greenbacks or catfish or both. I don't know. I just gotta wing it kinda and see what I can get away with.
Just bring bug spray if you're going for cats, Mitch. Just bring bug.
Yeah. How do you guys set up for cats? all I've done is, well, like in Minnesota, we just sat in the dock at night with a glow bobber and throw a worm down and catch them all night. But there's way more technique chasing those cats you guys are going after.
Well, you know what? It's it's specialized simplicity. Like it's not rocket science catching catfish, but obviously it's like anything we do at Blackwater Cats. What makes us who we are is our work ethic. You know, we're willing to drill as many holes as needed, fish out in the cold. We're willing to pick up the anchor 12 times in a 4-hour trip. We don't sit on our laurels. We're always looking for the next bet. So no matter what electronics or whatever, we're always working hard for it. So yeah, it's not that. But and the thing is, even our channel cats, though, they go through as aggressive they are and easy as guys say they are to catch sometimes. Man, they get lockjaw, and you got to have the right bait and the right time. And sometimes it's sucker and goldeye, and other times, like actually Ryan and Vanessa here, like Ryan's done a little guiding for me for cats here, but it's really not his main deal there. He's my #1 ice guide, but him and Vanessa got into it there and fished the Catfish Masters Cup and did quite well for kind of jumping into it. And you were using chicken breast or something, right, Ryan?
Yeah, we're using all sorts of different kind of chicken, but that time of the year, like it seemed like it's kind of sucker. We're off. Like as the year progresses, they kind of change. Like Donovan ends up using frogs in August, and like late season Tula Bee because it has a really high fat content, right? And we think they kind of shift to Tula Bee when they're spawning in the fall.
Yeah,
and that kind of seems to work better. Whatever they're actually feeding on that time of the year, just like suckers in the spring.
Are you guys doing like a sturgeon rig, like with the sliding weight, or what kind of rig?
It's just it's pretty much like, you know, they call it a cat rig. It's just a slip sinker rig, right? Just like a Lindy rig for a walleye or a sturgeon rig or whatever. It's just a slip sinker rig where you got a walking sinker and a swivel, a leader line, and a hook, right? And like I'm not a big believer of the circle hooks. Like that's kind of from the States and stuff. And up here, there's a time and a place, and there is times I'll put on circle hooks. But up here, man, and even Doug Stange, who's a huge promoter of circle hooks, and they work. Even up here in the boat, we did some testing, and he said, you know what, I haven't really seen this before ever, right? Where our fish don't necessarily always follow the blueprint where they grab the bait, pivot, hook goes in the corner of the mouth, it sits, no hook set, right? Well, sometimes our fish grab the bait and run at us. In fact, later in the year, it happens all the time. The fish start grabbing the baits and running into the current. Well, you got to reel up and set the hook. Can't do that with a circle hook, right? So I've never been a big circle hook promoter. Like there's times I'll use it if I got guests who are fish are popping off left and right or whatever. But usually I use I use owner, like just offset bait hooks, very similar to like the Gamma Gatsu, octopus hook.
Yeah.
So that's I use those kind of hybrid open kind of circle hooks, but something you can set the hook with, not just you gotta let them take it and hook himself, right?
What do you think the hot bite is for cats? Like, what's your good months to be coming out for a super bite?
You know what? In normal water levels, late May, early June is always good. The month of June is always great for numbers, right? You can't really beat late May, early and throughout the June, and then September. September is really great too. It kind of follows the walleye. Really, the walleye and the cats are on the same program up here, spring and fall, right? Having said that, cat in high water, like we've slammed cats to July and August in higher water years. The problem is in lower water years, July and August can be painful.
Right.
Now, having said that, we still catch fish and the guests are happy, but they're painful to our standards, right?
Yeah.
So,
are they just congregated more and there's more pressure on that hole that they're all stacking up in, or they just go lockjaw?
We don't. It's not. We don't often do the whole river hole run scenario with catfish up here. It's they're always relating to the current here. We fish near Lockport a lot of the times. Sometimes they're downriver in the deeper areas. But it's just that so July, the cats spawn in late June, early July up here. So the spawn period is one big thing that kind of makes them harder to find, right? And if you know where to look, they're actually really good. but it definitely slows things down for, the spawn's on, because most of the weekend eyes on the river aren't catching cats, and the guides are, because you know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is the low water levels. Like when the water in a low water level, and you start getting into late July and August, it gets hot, right? So you got a combination of low current, low water, less oxygen, super hot temperatures, and the cats just start getting super sluggish, and they move out. And I don't know exactly what happens. I think a lot of them move north and get out of the river or go to the deeper holes. In fact, last year was the first time ever we started to figure it out, and then we started having success in areas we've never fished before in the northern parts of the Red, in deeper water areas. So we know for a fact that when it gets tough in the future during those months, we got to go north. And it's kind of a new frontier to us too, but we did have some success. But they also, I think, when it gets low water, super hot, dog days August and early August, late July, I think the cats start feeding nocturnally too, where they don't really feed in the daytime.
Yeah. Yeah, I think last time I was in Lockport, I was fishing with Kevin Christensen, Dan Card, and that's when the Panoptics first came out. And we just smashed all these saugers on there. But that's the only time I fished the Red. I can't wait to get back and go for some cats, though.
It's so much fun, yeah.
Well, if you're coming back, you might as well come back in September and do the 1-2 punch, because that's when Lake Winnipeg walleyes are hot and the cats are hot. So you can't beat that time of year for both.
Yeah, I saw the pictures. Like Dylan, tons of people you guys just slayed that fall bite for greenbacks on the river.
Yeah.
Like it was tremendous.
Yeah, that's still going on, eh? Like Ryan, can you remember a year where you've seen more people fishing the Red? Ryan?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? The Red River this year. So my dad and my grandpa used to fish the Red River before I was, even born, right? So I have a pretty good history of the Red River, and they tell me stories like they'd always get, their limits. So 4 fish on the Red River, and they get the odd big one or whatever. And there was some years where they, absolutely slaughter, 28 to 31 inch fish in the river. Well, the Red River in the fall, the last, let's take the last 10 years, hasn't been as good as the previous 10 before that. But then this year we had low water, clear water, and even honestly, like coming into this past fall, if you ask Donovan, like what's it going to be like? He'd be like, oh, it's probably going to be all right. It's going to be, it'll be average. We'll have a run of fish, but we'll get maybe a lot of eaters. Like the year before, we had a run where guys were catching tons of eaters. The year before this one, or this past year, I guess now. Anyway, so this year comes around, and it is like the good old days. Like honestly, like on my social media, I saw more 30+ inch walleyes posted in that 4-week period than I've seen ice season or anything. Honestly, in the last like 5 years, like it was absolutely ridiculous. Like, I don't know what happened there, but it just goes to show what I said. Like you cannot count like trending direction of this fishery, because like honestly, just out of nowhere, just a monstrous pod can move into any given spot, and you can have the best year in the last 30, even when you least expect it.
Yeah, for sure. What's cool about that too is we really switched to fishing Lake Winnipeg for walleye, because it's just so much better 99% of the time in the fall than the Red River. It's more of a grind on the Red. But it's kind of cool because now we've had 2 years of history on Lake Winnipeg targeting walleye spring, fall, and summer. And we've kind of figured out the pattern when they start leaving the north and heading south. And I kind of predicted it before the fall started, and it went exactly the way I predicted it, and based on the year we saw the year before. And like it seems like September, last couple of weeks of September is prime time up on Lake Winnipeg up north. And in 2 weeks there, I think I had 10 fish over 30 inches in my boat. Wow. And then one day, same as the year before, one day in early October, all of a sudden the lights just went out. You had one day where it was just stupid. Patty was guiding out there one day this fall, and he had 10 fish over 28 in his boat. He had 2 30s. We had 4 or 5 with 2 30s and double headers. It was just stupid. Throwing 5-inch, 6-inch swim baits, bombing it out, and having big walleyes just destroy it, rip jigging it back to the boat. And then all of a sudden, boom, lights went out. Now, by lights went out, meaning you go out and you maybe catch a master a day. But I mean, it dropped off, and you're catching numbers, and the numbers got better, the fishing got better, but the big fish just started getting less and less and less. And that's what I think is that's when the flip is the light switch is flipped, and they start heading south. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, they show up in the Red River.
Yeah.
And and then a week after, maybe when it's shut down, you got them halfway down the lake and stuff, right? So we're starting to really see the migrational patterns of these fish better than I think probably better than anybody before,
Yeah, no, it's amazing fishery. Like, I know there's lots of ice heaves on Lake Winnipeg. How much do you guys have to deal with? Like, the one time we're on, the ice split like 6 feet and it had to get packed together. And I know it's such a big community on there. Like, we got called right away to like, hey, get off the lake. Do you guys deal with that on a regular basis, or
Ryan?
is it always shifting? It seems
Yeah,
like.
you know what? It's it depends on the year. Like, we'll have stretches where we have active ridges that seem to be opening and closing, and we're picking a different spot every single day to get around it. I've had instances before where we're fishing, the west side of the lake, and we have just a monstrous ridge open up, and it's like, a 6 feet crack across, like almost too big for planks. And I've led convoys of 20, 30 people, like people that I don't even know, that are just stranded because I know the route across and the other accesses, and you're leading guys across because you can't get off on the west side, or at the very least you drive 4 miles and it doesn't seem to be getting any better, and you say, okay, well, let's just go off this way because it seems like the easier option. We don't carry planks around with us. I know some guys do. Usually, almost always, I remember one morning in March, there was it was a truck traffic bonanza at Chalet Beach, and a ridge opened up. I don't know if you were out that one day, Donovan. A ridge opened up really close to shore, and it locked everyone in with a 2-mile radius, and there was 300, 400, 500 trucks just going around like crazy trying to find the way around this ridge offshore. And like I said, we always find a way across, and one guy will, or a lot of times the Hutterites out there, for whatever reason, will build bridges across some of these ridges in previous years that everyone uses. And it just depends on the year, I would say, but we always find a way across it. It doesn't ever end up being much of a safety issue. We check ridges. Where guys get themselves in trouble is just not paying enough attention, or taking a risk and not checking. And obviously you get that little bit of ice, and then you get a snow on top, and if it just happens to look like it's benign, the guys will drive into it. But like I said, just always be careful out there, and you never know when a crack's can open, when night to night or night to morning. So
For sure.
Yeah, it's yeah, the planks thing, like we all have, like me and Brad both have planks, and there was days back in the days we would take them with us in March or whatever. But I mean, it kind of got to the point where, like, the way I look at it is that we don't take planks to get onto the ice. We'll take them in case we have to get off, right?
Right.
And I think to make it, and the way I look at it is, if you've got a plank, something to get out and fish, maybe you shouldn't go fish. You know what I mean? Like, or if there's an alternative safe access, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it, right? And usually that's kind of the way it is. And I mean, people look to us as like experts, and we're out there a lot, so I guess we're experts. I don't feel like an expert. I don't talk to the ice. I can't tell you for sure what's safe. But what we do have experience out there. Maybe a little complacency too, which can be a good and bad thing.
Yeah.
But we do the work again, just like anything else. If there's something questionable, we drill holes. We get out and check. Like I said, when people get into, the problem is the popularity of ice fishing now. You get so many people who really don't know what they're doing, and they go out there and they see 20 trucks going and do something, so they're going to do it, right? But then they might go a little bit farther, or they go do something, and you know what I mean? So what I tell guys is, don't just take our word for it or anybody's word for it. Do your own work. You come across a ridge. If you don't know, get out and drill. It might be 4 feet of ice, but you don't know that. Don't just follow the guy in front of you, right? Don't do things that unless you've checked it and you know, confidently. And if you're not confident, go out with somebody else. And if you're scared, then don't go out. But I mean, it's just guys get themselves into trouble by taking risks when they don't know, right? So
there's too many people that get their ice thickness reports from social media nowadays.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's definitely on the ice. It's definitely monkey see, monkey do. And like Donovan said, we're kind of guilty of it ourselves. But quick story back. I don't know. I think I was like 17. I just got my driver's license. I was just starting to explore the lake with a truck. And it was like December 17th. And we were out there on we had like 10 inches of ice. We should not have been out there, but there was a small group of people that were kind of out a kilometer and it seemed to be fine. And I went off like another kilometer, kind of testing along the way. And then one afternoon, this guy with his like 2,500 comes barreling on my trail. I'm the furthest one out, and I'm like, I'm not going any further because we hit around like 8 inches of ice. And this guy goes barreling by, and he actually about 500 yards past me went in, and he was okay. And just the back end of the truck was hanging up a little bit. But that was just a scenario where he said, okay, well, I was that far and it must be good to go, and didn't test conditions and just kind of just went and you know, the truck paid for it. He was all right, but
that's crazy.
Gave her the business. Didn't make it.
You know what? I remember one spring we were, or not spring, one early ice. We were out there from the west side on sleds. I was with Brad and about 4 other guys on quads and sleds. And everything out from Warner and Chalet, about a mile, was pretty solid. It's early, but 12 inches ice, 15 inches ice. This is pretty decent.
Yeah.
We were all over the place, and near the end of the afternoon, we're like, you know what? It seems pretty solid. We're on sleds and stuff. Let's run over to Sal and check it out. I don't know if you were there with us that day, Ryan. Let me know if you remember that. But so we ran over to the Sal and just booted 3 miles or something. Not checking ice, nothing. Figured that's good. So we get there, get off the sleds, grab the auger, and I start walking, and the ice is waving. And I'm like, what the hell? I go to drill a hole, and it's like it just gets a couple turns in, it pops through, and I'm like, hold on, guys, what's going on here? So I tiptoe back to my sled, and I'm not like as experienced we are. I'll tell you, I'm not an early ice warrior. I am not that guy. So I grab my bump board, check it out. It's 4 inches. Now, depending who you talk to, they're either going to tell you, oh, that's more than enough, or oh, you're crazy for being there. But yeah, we fished it for about an hour. Thank God there was no wind that day. That was one of the factors of exploring. But 4 inches on Lake Winnipeg is nothing. You get a big wind, it'll bust that up like nothing, right?
It's gone, yeah.
So it's just like, even sometimes I think about that day and I think to myself, like, what were we doing? But I mean, that's, like I say, without wind or bad conditions, I guess that technically that's safe. But it was an unnerving feeling walking around on Lake Winnipeg and ice waving underneath you as you walked. So we only fished there for a half an hour, and we all kind of said, let's get out of here. No one was comfortable. So we got out of there and went back, But yeah, you gotta, it's whenever, no matter where it is, every year at early ice, someone dies, right? And it's always the same story. Oh, he's grandfather ice fisherman. He's been fishing for 50 years and knows the ice better than it knows itself, right? And that's always the guy that dies at early ice, right?
Complacency.
So there's old pilots and there's bold pilots, or there's old pilots and there's bold pilots, but there's no old bold pilots.
Yeah.
All right, I'll be back in a sec. Gotta let the dog in.
All right.
But what would you say is your most favorite time of season to fish walleye?
I'll let Ryan, you take this one.
Well, it depends if you're asking like all seasons. Honestly, like on Lake Winnipeg, opening day until midway or start of June, it seems like anywhere shallow on Lake Winnipeg, it don't matter, and you're catching numbers and big fish the last 5 years, and then for ice season, I don't know, it seems like if we could say like 1 week is probably like the best over the last 10 years, I would say is probably that stretch mid mid-February, late February, that like early March, late February is usually we have some of our we have great bites all throughout the year. But if I had to say like which one do we consistently never not catch fish, it would probably, it's hard to say. It's really hard to say.
Well, you know what? It's funny because I think if you ask all six or eight of my guides, I think all of us would give you a different week, and none of us are wrong, right? But
Everybody has
we just
their
remember so many good bites, you know. For me in winter, I would have to say personally, I'd say it's a toss up between the first week of January and third week of March, and that's literally a flip of a coin. Open water for me. I mean, it's hard to get away from the last 2 weeks of May, which is probably some of the best walleye fishing I've ever experienced in my life, including everything we do on the ice on Lake Winnipeg. Like, the last week of May is just absolute insanity. Like, it's better than any flyout you've been to. Like, I kid you not, if you go to the right areas. But at the same time, man, the last week of September for true giant hogs, like, never in my life could I ever say you can target 30-plus inch fish, but in that week on Lake Winnipeg, you can target 30-plus inch fish. So, I don't know. That's kind of my opinion.
Todd, what's your opinion?
Oh man, I don't know. I would actually have to agree with Donovan on the end of May. That opening week, especially, I find typically is usually the hottest bite. Even last year, like going into summer and early into fall, nothing even so much as touched that May bite.
Yeah.
Man, I'm weird. Sometimes I like that midsummer bite. It's like a 1 to 3 o'clocker in the flats when they're chasing minnows. It's when people don't fish that time of day, they think there's nothing biting, but sometimes I can get the hottest bite with some big walleye.
I believe it.
And I've seen you catch some big walleye around then too.
But
yeah, Lake Winnipeg walleye can be really weird. Like, you know, I have my parents have a cabin on the west shores there of Lake Winnipeg, and not really like not much angling happens there for the most part. But I always go there in little tinners, and sometimes you catch fish and sometimes you don't. But I remember there was one summer, and it was like the water was like bath water. Like it must have been pushing 80. It was ridiculous. We had like, you know, it was like late July. We had a week or two, you know, plus 31, 33 every single day. And the walleyes were stacked in like 4 to 6 feet of water. And we were out there pouring water on ourselves. In like 6 feet of water, we were catching walleyes in the middle of the afternoon with the sun at its highest, one after another. We're like, this doesn't make any freaking sense. Like, and you can never bank on any pattern, because these fish can be just absolutely so stupid and do the opposite of what you're expecting. That and I, you know, I'm a big musky fisherman, and it's like you can never get too glued to one specific pattern, because these fish just sometimes go to the beat of their own drum, and you know that's the way they are. And so never get too confident. Never put the blind, like Donovan says, never put the blinders on and get overconfident, because that can get you in trouble too. So always keep your eyes open and see what the fish are telling you, not what, you know. A lot of times we want to fish confidence, and that's good too, but just listen to the fish.
For sure. So this month, our friends at Backwoods Lithium hooking us up with the Dakota Lithium battery to give away.
Whoa.
So, Donovan.
Yo.
What's your favorite number between 1 and 100?
Oh, okay. I picked it.
Already,
man.
Oh, shoot. So, you'll pick this number. We'll get
should I give a hint?
We'll let them put it in the comments, and whoever's closest will get it. Then we'll go throughout the month, and whoever has the best answers will win the battery. So you can actually, let's just let them guess. Then after the show, we'll just go off live, and you can tell me the number.
Yeah.
And I'll write it down now. Then who's ever the closest from this week, I'll write down. And then next week we'll do the same with our next guest.
Now, Mitch, are you guys only allowing one guest per person?
Yeah, one guest per person sounds even.
Well,
But
yeah.
I appreciate you guys on the show. It's great talking to you. Where can they find you on your social medias and everything?
So we do all our trip booking information through blackwatercats.com, our website. Any inquiries about trips or booking on there, you can follow me on Facebook just under Donovan Pierce or Blackwater Cats. And then, just to have conversations about fishing, Ryan has his personal name on Facebook, Instagram, same with me or whatever. But yeah, anything to do with the business or the bite, blackwatercats.com, or just on Facebook, you can message me.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You guys.
Yeah, no, stay on if you'll have a beer after.
For sure.
Todd, where are they going to find you?
Well, you find me here, apparently. At Living for Fishing on Instagram or just Todd Boyd on Facebook. And Mitch, what about you?
Northwest Mitch, Alberta Fishing Trips. That's where I'm always at.
Awesome. I guess maybe we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Yeah, probably should. Maybe we'll go to Manitoba.
21st Januaries fishing, just saying.
All right, guys. Well, just stay on the show. We'll talk after.
Sure. Thanks.
Everybody else, we'll see you next week. Cheers.
See you guys later.
Cheers.